Today's guest is Mike Andes, the owner of Augusta Lawn Care. So, Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Great. I love entrepreneurial stories, franchises, scaling, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, how did you get involved in all the stuff that you're part of now?
Yeah, well, so I started mowing lawns when I was 11 years old, and I did that because I wanted to pay my way through college. I kind of saw that as my way out, and so I started college when I was really young. I was 13 years old when I started college, and I was planning to become a doctor. And so then at age
Okay, wait,
18,
wait, wait. Not everyone starts college at 13. I mean, so I guess you skipped a bunch of grades. Growing up, you were very fast.
yeah, I started early in kindergarten, and then I skipped a couple grades, and then I did a couple grades in one at home in my high school years.
How was that? Because I remember when I was in college, there was, students that were younger, right? And I always wonder, the point of view, right? Because obviously your peers are much older, maybe they have different interests, life things. I mean, how was your experience, skipping grades and just being around people that are much older than you?
Yeah, like, in hindsight, it probably set me up for a lot of the business side of things just to not be super. I never felt intimidated by hiring people that are older than me, etc. But looking like during going through it wasn't actually that bad. The reason was because my parents were great at parenting me on this. They never pushed me to do it, and then secondly, we just never talked about it. Like it was like super normal, like that I was going to college. So it was never like I felt strange or weird or different, and they just did an excellent job of making sure that like as a family it was just like I was a very normal person, and I never thought of anything of it until like a professor would say something or maybe someone at school, but it was never that big of a deal, honestly.
Yeah, cool. So you had this path towards, you said doctor, right? And
Correct.
then what changed?
Yeah, so I went to Kenya for 2 months, and I was volunteering at different orphanages and hospitals in Tigoni and Kawangware, it's kind of just outside Nairobi. And it was phenomenal. I was able to do like injections, birthing, surgeries, just all sorts of stuff. I worked a lot in the pediatric burn unit, and I came back to the U.S. fully expecting to go back to medical school, take my MCAT, etc. And decided after doing some shadowing over here that like this is not the system I want to be part of. I saw less patients. I did a lot more paperwork. There was much more bureaucracy, politics, and like the pharmaceutical side of things over here. I wasn't a huge fan of doing the same procedures for the next 40 years of my life. And I wanted a little bit more variety. And I saw it in Africa, but I just realized it wasn't going to happen over here if I was specialized in neurosurgery. And so that's when I was like, okay, great. I'm going to, bail out of medical school. I'm going to start, I only know how to mow grass. So I'm going to start Augusta Lawn Care. So, and just basically scale up what we already started doing in terms of mowing. And that's when we started Augusta Lawn Care. That's 10 years ago. And 5 years ago, we franchised the business. So started selling franchisees on the idea of joining Augusta Lawn Care. So now we have 157 locations around the US, Canada, and Australia.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I know, look at franchises, and they get a little, I guess, too quick to want to do that. You spent the first 5 years doing that. What sort of things did you have to have in place to know that you were ready to expand out and franchise?
Yeah, so basically what happened is I got in a workplace accident where I was underneath the dump truck and my hoodie got caught in the PTO, which is the power takeoff, the thing that spins underneath the dump truck. It got caught in there, basically put me out of commission for a couple weeks. Fortunately, I was alive, but what made me realize that my business was built on me working 80 to 100 hours a week, not on systems and procedures. And so over the course of a couple years, I started instituting like pay for performance for my crew instead of paying them an hourly wage. I started doing estimate videos so I wouldn't have to show the crew every single project because I was like, even in the hospital, I was literally on the hospital bed videoing my crew on FaceTime to show them the next job. And so creating all those systems and procedures is what was basically the operations manual for the franchise once we launched that, and realizing that it took me from basically losing money, if maybe break even in my lawn care business, a couple years later being able to do $300,000 in owners distributions from the business. I'm like, okay, this is a model that will work. I can give this to other people and it will work for them too.
Yeah, for sure. So with franchises, how did you get the word out there?
I had already kinda started doing a little bit of social media, just sharing as I went through those couple years. I was kinda sharing what was working for me, what was not working for me, my lows and my highs. This business model, this, advertising campaign worked, this one did not. Here's how we handle contracts. I was just sharing a lot of information. So I had like 8 or 9,000 subscribers, maybe 6 or 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, and just kind of doing some podcasting. But then that's how it kinda got started, the first 10, 15, 20 locations. And as we've scaled the media, the social media, really it's just really scaled at Augusta Lawn Care in terms of a number of locations. And all of them have come from the social media side.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's all social media. I remember I was very close to when 1-800 got junk got going, and it was more the traditional media, but it's just whatever is available at the time, right? And if you're good at communicating and sort of building influence or followers, I mean that
Mhm.
could be very appealing for people that don't want to take that full risk of starting something from scratch.
Absolutely.
Good. And you've kind of like spawned off into other businesses. How did that work?
Yeah, so basically there was pieces and parts of the franchise I wanted to be able to support the owners with, but it would cost me too much to be able to bring that in-house. So like I wanted to take the web design in-house, but it's expensive to have programmers and developers and designers, etc. So I'm like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start lawn care web design and home service web design, and everyone that doesn't join the franchise can just buy our services there. And so basically, that's like a subscription for web design. Same thing with like CPA. I wanted to be able to offer accounting services to the franchisees. Couldn't afford to get an army of CPAs to help them. So, especially when we only had 30, 40, 50 locations. And so it was like, okay, great. We'll start home service CPA. We'll start lawncaremedia.com. So we can do like designs and marketing side. So it really was just a matter of like piecemealing what we did inside the franchise so we could afford to bring in that talent a lot sooner than we would have otherwise, just waiting for us to get big enough to be able to afford them.
Yeah, that's clever. I like that. You offer the service of something you need. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you said you started to systemize all that stuff. Did you uh, follow anyone? Get any ideas? Get have mentors? How did you figure that all out, or you just started to like out of need, just do piece by piece by piece?
Yeah, like at the beginning when you don't have a lot of money, I think like following people online is super helpful. And so, you know, Alex Hormozy is a big inspiration to me, like kind of virtually in terms of a mentor. Also, his kind of editor and friend, Dr. Cash, is my coach. But it's only been recent in the past couple of years where I've started investing a lot in coaching, and even when we started the software products like Copilot CRM, similarly we use software a lot. So like we now have that. We sell that to the public as well. But like I realized as we started to scale a software company, I did not have the skills that a technical founder needs for running a SaaS company. And so starting to be in other rooms and masterminds or conferences, I think it's super valuable. And so it's only really in the past couple of years I start to really spend significant amounts of time, money on actually getting in the right rooms, getting a mentor, getting a coach, and it really just unlocks time. The same way, like you try to skip grades, or I try to do multiple in one. It's like, okay, if I can do this in 5 years, awesome. But if I can do it in two, because I just simply have these unlocks and keys given to me by someone else, then I think that's a worthy trade of spending on that.
Yeah. I mean, with these like different companies or sorry, the different offerings, are they separate companies or are they just part of the same thing? How is it structured?
Yeah, so we're actually bringing them all together in 2025. Right now, there's three different entities, but Copilot CRM, there's Augusta Franchise, and there's the Mike Andes Media Group. But we're bringing it all together. Our goal is that in the next 8 to 12 years, we go public with it because they kind of all cross pollinate each other. But right now, it's kind of three, and they're coming into one.
So when you have all those things going at once, what do you do to stay organized or prioritize?
Yeah, like everyone says it, it's very cliche, but it really ultimately does come down to great people, finding them, be able to attract them with a great vision, and a vision big enough for them to fit their goals and dreams inside of. And once you find that person, giving them full reign in that apartment or that division to make the calls that they want, because otherwise they could probably go start their own business. And so whether it be compensation or just the autonomy to be able to do what they want is what will usually attract and retain them for the long term.
Yeah, you said something interesting. Basically having a level of support that takes some of the risk out of it. How do you find it sounds like the people you bring in are fairly entrepreneurial minded. but they're not comfortable with the excess of entrepreneurial risk.
Yeah, at times, sometimes just life, kind of puts them in a position where they can't take that big risk, but they do have the skills or the experience, and then people are just wired differently. They don't want 100% risk, but they'd rather have 50 or 60% risk. So their compensation package will reflect that. Their experience will reflect that. Maybe they did something on the side in the past, and those can complement whatever the business is trying to achieve, assuming you draw a very clear parallel between their goals and the business's goals. And then they can become entrepreneurs inside of the organization.
Yeah, for sure. I know that, when I first started entrepreneurship, it wasn't hyped up the way it is now. Uh, but everyone's different, right? So I think sometimes entrepreneurship is too hyped up, and they make it seem like the greatest thing in the world, and it's horrible for some. And you kind of like outline some reasons why you might want to not want to do it. Is what's the difference? When you look at a franchise owner, like, how do you know the right fit?
Yeah, like in terms of franchisee, we are looking for people that want to follow systems. The constraints of a franchise or any system, like a system, think of it like a funnel. It's basically trying to create certain inputs and create a predictable output or a predictable outcome. And so when we look at a franchise, the goal of joining a franchise is that you have a predictable outcome of a business of a certain size, generates a certain amount of revenue, and that predictable outcome is generated by having constraints, funneling your behavior. And for some people, that's very limiting. As entrepreneurs, we want to like test new things, try out this and
Yeah,
change this. Whereas a franchise, like, no, like you're staying actually inside these constraints. And that can be somewhat difficult. That's why not everyone should join a franchise.
yeah,
However, the predictable outcome is usually much more predictable and has a higher likelihood of success because they've seen those same obstacles that you're going to encounter 100, 1,000, 5,000 times. And they know what the answers are to unlock and get through that obstacle.
yeah. I mean, some people like the blank sheet, and other people it stresses them out. I guess it's a little bit more towards the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. How is this? You said that you're bringing this all together and going public and stuff like that. I mean, what's the grand vision? What you have so many different offerings and stuff like that. What's the vision?
Yeah, like the goal is for home service business owners to know what to do in their business next and why. And so, in my social media, I will usually travel out to turn around small businesses that are struggling. So they apply, we go out, and in a day, we try to turn the business around. And the challenging part with that is we have a bunch of cameras, and it's pretty humiliating to have people publicly see what you're going through in the business. And so most people aren't going to apply. So what I did is I wrote that book right there, the total business turnaround,
Okay.
and it's essentially a roadmap so that someone can take the book and turn around their business. Walks through all the different ways that when I go into these businesses, what I'm looking for, what key performance indicators, what actually am I thinking, how to turn the company around.
Yeah.
But even still, some people will not read the book. And so the goal is to be able to take in Copilot CRM the ability for them to be able to send invoices and estimates and do their regular scheduling, but then for it to actually pull the data from the CRM and then tell them what to do next, when they should hire someone, when they should raise prices, which services are the most profitable. These are the type of things that data is already inside the system. It's just a matter of how do we use AI and as well as certain predictive measures to know exactly when the business should be taking making certain decisions, like hiring, like raising prices, etc.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of turnarounds, you said there's a process. I mean, what are the steps or some of the things that are required to turn around a business? Since you've approached many companies and done this before.
The biggest thing is the willingness to change. And so a lot of times we will follow up with the owners afterwards, and more than half of them don't make any changes, even after we come out there. And so the willingness to change is really the number one factor as to whether or not any change will happen. And so you can have all the right metrics and know exactly, it all makes logical sense. It's very, very straightforward. But if someone doesn't want to change and they're holding on to previously held beliefs that are false, the business will never turn around.
No, that's really powerful. It's great. Um, what Obviously, if companies want to learn more about what you're doing, they can get your book, and I guess you have a website as well. Where do you if people want to learn more, where should they go?
YouTube is great. Just go Mike Andes on there, and every week we put out content there for free. So hopefully it's helpful.